Alright guys, back on the Colorado here. Since the last dedicated Colorado video, we've done a couple of fleet videos. Sold the Prius. Wasn't really any content there. I put a 12-volt battery in it, put a blower motor in it, and everything was fine. It had a brake problem, it was intermittent, and I injured my back, so I was down for a while, and money's kind of low, so I went ahead and threw it out there and sold it. I disclosed the intermittent brake issue, told him it was probably going to need the actuator, told him to do his research, but it did sell. So we're on this thing. If you remember, I think the last video, it had a driveline noise. We pulled the driveline, put a U-joint in it. The rear U-joint was bad. Carrier bearing's fine, front U-joint's fine. The output seal on the transmission, I said, was leaking. It was foobarred for sure. Should have caught that while I had the motor out, but you know, you got a lot of things going when you're trying to do a swap. Get things in line, you're not really thinking about a bad seal. So our last dilemma was mass airflow. Now before we get into this, I want to specify I've done a couple of videos on current performance trouble I've had with our product. This connector is pinned wrong, or was pinned wrong, but it's not their fault, it's my fault. When I ordered this wiring harness, they were asking me questions that I didn't have the answer to. They want to know what part number injectors I had, and they want to know several different things. And I said, look, all I know is it came out of a 2013 Silverado, and I'm going to use everything off the Silverado. So that's how they did the harness. Well, when I ordered the cold air kit for an 09 Colorado, the 13 Silverado, I think I mentioned it in another video, the 13 Silverado sensor is different. It's round, and this is a cartridge. So no problem, right? You just go get a cartridge for an 09 Colorado, put it in there and plug it up, and got all kinds of mass airflow codes. So I figured it had to be, well, I actually figured maybe it was when I had the running problem, I thought something went through it. And so I went and got another one, put it in there, same thing. It's got P102 and 112 or 113, whatever it is. Pretty much telling you that the wiring's not right. So me and a friend of mine, we messed with this thing all night one night. Who would have thought there was 100 different ways you can wire this sensor? The plugs are all the same, the wires are in different places. Well, why would they do that? You know, maybe I can understand too, you know, you start from left to right if it's over here, and you start from right to left if it's over there, depending on how the air is going by the sensor. Not that you couldn't just design your intake where you could flip the sensor around and the wiring would be the same. How hard would that be? So after multiple fails, we actually cut the wire off of the i5 harness and plugged up to here. That way we could use those wires and poke them in different holes on this plug, kind of like a little jumper harness. We tried every way in the world and we couldn't make it right. Well, so I contacted Current Performance and said I need the pinout for the sensor plug and a part number for the sensor that will work. And they replied, but for some reason, there's two ways. If you go on their website, there's two ways to contact them. And the way that I contacted them, they replied, but they said it was invalid. So I wait a week, I never hear from them, and I contacted them through the other porthole thing they got on their website. And this was on a Sunday, knowing that they would contact me Monday, but they contacted me Sunday. Who does that? So shout out to them guys for doing that. But anyway, he said, we did reply to your other email, but it kept coming back that it couldn't be delivered. It wasn't a valid address. I said, well, okay. So they resent me the email that they originally sent, and it had the diagram, A, B, C, and D, I think. I can't see it now because it's on there. But it didn't say how you orient the connector. Is A over here or is A over here? So I look at the plug, look at my other plug, it's not marked. Look at the sensor, there's nothing on the sensor. I look at this, the other sensors, and there's nothing on them that says how it goes. See, it's not stamped. And that's how it's in there with the, oh, that's how it's in there with the lock to the top. So there's no stamping on that one. I don't know if you can see this and with it plugged up. And there's no stamping on that one. So, do you go from left to right or right to left? I don't know. So we tried everywhere in the world. Finally decided maybe the sensor was bad. So we looked at it again. I think that one's wired right. It is wired right. So their paperwork showed the diagram, but like I said, didn't show the plug orientation. So we looked on the internet, couldn't find anything, and I switched sensors, and I just figured the sensor was bad. We put the plugs in order, the wires in order we thought they'd go, left to right, and it wouldn't work. So I went ahead, and their paperwork said LS3 mass airflow sensor. Well, I asked them for a part number, and they didn't send me a part number. So I did a little more research. Camaro, 09 Camaro come with the LS3. So I ordered this sensor for a 09 Camaro. Well, when I get it, it is marked, and A is over here. So all my wiring was right. I just had to flip it around. So flipped it around, connected it, started it up. Still not running right, but we have no codes for this. So that is correct. That is taken care of. The code we have now is PO 175. Is that right? Or 73? 75. It's 171 and 173, I believe. PO 171, PO 173. And it's bank 1 and bank 2 lean. Now, lean condition is either not enough fuel, but when the sensor wasn't right, it was running on the base tune and it ran fine. You could stay in it as long as you want. It ran, pulled good. So I think it's got plenty of fuel pressure. I haven't checked it. I'm going to have to get into that later. But anyway, we just sprayed it down with brake clean everywhere. It's not throttling up, so I'm not seeing a vacuum leak, which is what it's telling me, that it's either low fuel pressure or a vacuum leak. All the air goes through here, and this measures the amount of air going through here, and then the computer puts the amount of fuel in it that it should need. And then the oxygen sensors, they look at the fuel in the exhaust and see whether you need more or less, and they continuously tune. So if you have a vacuum leak, like a bad brake booster or broke vacuum line, it's pulling air in there that's not getting metered here. So this is metering the fuel for this air, but wherever you're pulling in air from a broke vacuum line or PCV, any vacuum line, it's pulling air in that's not metered. So the fuel trim's set for this airflow, and you have too much airflow, makes it lean. Or it's setting the fuel for the airflow here if you don't have a vacuum leak, and the fuel trims can't reach what it needs because you have low fuel pressure. So we're gonna have to put the launch on there and dig into all that a little deeper. I've done a quick spray down. I kind of think maybe it's an intake gasket issue, but because intake sets up higher than the other one did. It has the metal gaskets, if you are familiar. It has the metal gaskets with the little tab that hangs on the head bolts, where this one had the plastic that snapped on the intake. And the metal ones make the intake. I've run into that before on an engine where it sets up too high and it doesn't fit right. This one fit right, but it may be leaking. I actually stuck a hose down under the intake, sprayed brake clean down in it, and the RPMs didn't go up. So We'll have to put the scanner on it, look at fuel trims and airflow and things of that nature. May just be a bad sensor. You know, nowadays you get bad parts all the time. That's what makes it hard on a guy working on his own stuff at home. Now you go get it scanned and it says it needs a starter, and you put a starter on it and it don't fix it. Well, it don't fix it because the starter you bought from the local retailer down here is junk. So it's kind of hard for a guy at home to figure all this out without knowing a good way to test all of your sensors and look at all of your stuff. Anyway, so we're gonna put the wheel back on it, get it off the stand, and we'll come back, close this video out. Here's the seal. Like I said, the 2013 truck, see, that tore all to pieces. The 2013 truck was hit real hard in the front, and it shoved the engine and everything back and bottomed the drive shaft out on here. And I never even thought about it. See, this is dust. This is actually the seal in here. See, it's all tore up. So this is actually the seal that holds the oil in. And when it shoved the drive line in all the way, it ruined the seal. Let's see if I can. I don't know, I can't see. It's hard for me to read through the camera. Part number, you may have to turn it over to read it. This is the U-joint. You can see that big old number, 355. That's the U-joint for the rear. Like I said, the carrier bearing was fine. The center U-joint was good. Front U-joint was good. This is the wheel hub. Now this wheel hub wasn't making any noise, and it feels good, although it is flinging oil out of it. But it was squeaking, and it had an intermittent ABS code for a left front wheel speed sensor. So I changed it anyway. Well, when I tore it apart, the way these are set up, which is ignorant, the rotor goes on the back side of this hub, has bolts going through into the rotor, and the bolts were all loose, so that might have been my squeak. But I already had the hub, and so I just went ahead and put it on. Which, by the way, this is an ignorant design. You know, people build these cars and you want people to be brand loyal, but you do stuff like this. You know, you buy this truck new, whatever you give for it, gets 100,000 miles on it, needs a set of brake pads, throw a set of brake pads on it, no big deal. Now you're at 200,000 and you need a rotor. Well, you have to completely pull the harness, and you have to unbolt the hub and pull it out and separate the rotor and the hub on the bench, because all this goes through the center of the rotor and through the A-frame, the spindle. So you can't change the rotor without tearing all this apart. Now you take this thing to a shop, what are you going to do? You got a wheel hub with 200,000 miles on it. Are you going to put it back? Or are you going to put two new ones on it? Of course you're going to put two new ones on it. 200,000 miles. Do you want to spend all the money to tear this apart, put the brake rotors on here, put it back together, only to have to do it again in 6 months when the bearing goes bad? So you've just turned, you engineers just turned a $300, take it to the local shop, and for $300 labor, they'll put both rotors and new brake pads on both sides. Well, you just turned that into $1,300. Because now it's a complete, you know, almost front end dismantle, and it's stupid. And you're not going to risk running a 200,000 mile hub if you've already got it off. If you could just pull the caliper and pull the rotor like all of them are, then you'd risk the rotor, the hub. But you're not going to risk the hub if you have to spend the money to have it removed, because then you're just going to have to do it again. And you know, we're not talking about a car from the 60s that had drums that they converted to disc brakes that maybe you can't move the hub. We're talking about a truck that they designed from scratch and purposely designed some bullshit like that. I mean, you guys, you know, have a little... Dang, there's my ice cream guy. I wish I was making a video. I'd go get me some ice cream. Dang it. See what I'm saying? Here's your hub. And your rotor's on the back side of it. Ain't that stupid? Ain't that stupid? Anyway, what are you gonna do? You don't know, see, when you buy a vehicle, you don't know that kind of stuff. But when you buy one and then you have to deal with this and you have to pay all this extra money to do work you shouldn't have to do, you're not going to buy another one. Now, I know, you know, nobody in the GM industry is ever going to see this video, so it's kind of irrelevant. Anyway, I'm going to get off here, put the wheel on, get it off the jack stand, and we'll come back and say bye. Well, guys, that's it for today. Got the wheel back on and on the ground. I've sprayed everything in the world on this with brake clean, and I'm going to get some starting fluid and do it again. Because, you know, some of this brake clean's flammable and some of it's not. So I seen a guy on YouTube said all you need is water, but I don't know if you can hear it or not. That truck's kind of loud, but you know, the truck runs good. When you accelerate, it falls on its face. I can unplug the map sensor, the mass airflow sensor, and when it sets the code, runs perfect. You can do a pull on it on the road, and it'll pull all the way till it runs at RPMs. So I just don't think there's a fuel issue. You know, I'm still questioning the intake gaskets. So I'm going to get some starting fluid, and I'll run my hose back up under the intake, spray starting fluid under there, and see if it'll pick up RPMs. It should change RPMs when you spray something flammable where a vacuum leak is, because it's pulling fuel in there instead of more air. But first I'm going to put the scan tool on it, look at all the fuel trims, and see if the, you know, I guess the oxygen sensor, you know, I had the problem with the stuck injector pouring fuel. Maybe it took the oxygen sensors out. Maybe they're not reading correctly. I don't know, it's kind of odd. Not exactly sure what's going on, and that sucks, because I was hoping this was the last video on this truck. We could tell you it's on Marketplace for sale, but it will be one of these days. I'm going to start at 10 grand, so if you want to get in on the ground floor and get in early, well, just give me a holler in the comments. If you look through some of my videos, my phone number is in some of my videos, so if you put in the legwork, you can contact me pretty easy. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Next video will be on the Silverado. We were putting a door window motor in it, but and I wasn't going to film it because it's not really a big job, but turned into a mess because it has studs in the window regulator and nuts on the inside of the door, or on the outside of the door, I guess you'd call it, behind the door panel. You just take the nuts off. Well, one of the studs is spinning in the, so I'm gonna have to grind the nut and everything off, put a bolt and everything back in it. So we're gonna do a video on that next weekend. It's Sunday afternoon, time to get ready to go to work Monday. All right, like, share, comment, tell everybody you know, tell people you don't know. Help me grow my channel. I appreciate what you guys do. We are at 288 subscribers. Thank you to each and every one of you.